This year's union budget included the privatization of two public sector banks and one insurance firm. And this privatization move is a part of a big agenda of the government, the disinvestment agenda. Also, this is not the first time any public sector undertaking or PSU is being privatized in our country. Previously also governments have done that, and this time it will be done properly and on a very big scale. In this video, we will see what privatization is and what its consequences are. Is it good or bad? In simple words, we can say that privatization means that a company in which previously the majority or full stake was owned by government, also known as PSU, will be sold to a private entity and the government will withdraw fully from the company. On the outside, disinvestment and privatization seems to have the same meaning, but there is a difference. That is, in disinvestment, the government retains the majority stake and only sells some of it. What our government is planning to do is that it will categorize the PSUs into two different sectors, strategic sector and non-strategic sector. In the strategic sectors will remain the PSUs in the area of national importance such as companies related to defense, banking, steel, petroleum and a few more. All the PSUs in the remaining areas would be put into the non-strategic sector. In the PSUs of the non-strategic sector, the government is planning to exit completely through privatization or strategic disinvestment, while in the strategic sector also, no more than 4 PSUs will remain under government control. Rest all will either be privatized or many small PSUs will merge into big ones so that only 4 big PSUs will remain, just as it might happen with banks. Also, some things have already started to privatize, such as nearly 10 airports will be sold and some have already been sold such as the Ahmedabad Airport, Lucknow Airport, Jaipur Airport, Guwahati Airport and few more. One important advantage of privatization is that private companies often operate in a much more efficient manner compared to companies that are owned by the government. This is due to the fact that publicly owned companies often do not have any price pressure and can operate in a rather slow manner, while private companies have to compete in a fierce free market, and in case they are not efficient enough, companies in the private sector will go bankrupt. Hence, in order to increase the overall level of efficiency of processes inside the firm, it can make sense to privatize companies in order to increase the pressure for necessary adjustments in processes. It is argued that governments make poor economic managers. They are motivated by political pressure rather than sound economic and business sense. For example, a state enterprise may employ surplus workers which is inefficient. The government may be reluctant to get rid of the workers because of the negative publicity involved in job losses. Therefore, state-owned enterprises often employ too many workers, increasing inefficiency. Another advantage of privatization is that it can be a good income source for governments, especially if governments are close to failure and urgently need money. It might make sense to sell publicly owned corporation or properties in order to reduce government debt. Hence, if a government urgently needs money, which currently it needs, privatization may be one of the last tools available to it. The three advantages mentioned above are not the only ones, but they basically give us an idea why privatization may be needed. Now, let us look at some disadvantages to privatization. A clear disadvantage of privatization, especially in India, is that job reservation will get reduced since there is no provision for reservation in private jobs, which may affect the weaker communities. While product prices can actually become lower through privatization of companies that are subject to fierce competition, the opposite may also be true for natural monopolies. For instance, if an airport is privatized, the airport will often have monopolistic powers since many people in a specific region will have to rely on the single airport. In turn, this airport can dictate prices and chances are there that through privatization the prices of flights may significantly increase over time. In a market with plenty of interconnections and interdependencies, the privatization of companies may lead to serious problems since the responsibilities of companies may become unclear. In turn, there may be plenty of disputes and lawsuits regarding which company is responsible for which service. In the worst case, this might lead to a serious shortage regarding the supply with important goods. Therefore, making sure that every party knows their responsibilities is crucial before privatizing public companies in order to avoid several unpleasant surprises and confusion. Most private corporations act in a profit maximizing manner, and therefore also some jobs may be lost through privatization. If a private company comes to the conclusion that some workers are no longer needed, the company will quite often simply fire those workers. In this part, we saw what is privatization and its advantages and disadvantages. And in part 2 of this topic, we will see why there is a need for privatization in our country and how the previous PSUs that have been privatized have turned out.